Okay, the recording has begun, and welcome to day one of the RadResponder Nationwide Drill Preparedness Through Partnerships. We have over 100 people on this meeting, and we have over 200 people registered for this drill, so we are really excited to kick things off today. Today's focus is kicking off the drill and building partnerships. Today, we'll talk about the overview of the drill and logistics for those of you who are unable to attend the pre-drill webinar, and just to give a recap. We'll then talk about the regional groups and how this drill is going to be structured. We'll talk about our ROS task force leaders who are going to be heavily involved in this drill and provide you all guidance. We'll then talk about day one drill logistics, building partnerships within RadResponder and outside of RadResponder, some presentations from our community on RadResponder Prepared, and then we will close things up with some action items and resources for you all to get started. This nationwide drill is kindly sponsored by the FEMA Office of Emerging Threats, and in honor of their 10-year anniversary, the Radiological Operations Support Specialist ROS program. All drill planning has been conducted by Cambridge Technologies in coordination with ROS, so we thank everyone for their time. This is something that they volunteered to do, and so we are greatly appreciative of all of their efforts and support. As a refresher, this nationwide drill is about the importance of establishing partnerships in RadResponder, especially during a radiological incident that crosses state, county, jurisdiction lines. Drill participants are going to leverage ROS personnel to better understand the benefit that they bring to a real-world response and how you can request their expertise. Again, the main theme here is partnerships, so the more that everyone participates and the more that you put into the drill, the more you will get out of it. This is a training environment. We encourage you to ask questions, make mistakes. This is what this drill is for. On-demand support will be available throughout the duration of the drill, where again, we encourage you to ask questions and share any comments or questions that you have. The objectives for this week are simple. We want you to learn more about partnerships and how to coordinate resources and expertise throughout a response in RadResponder. Things to keep in mind throughout this week: have an open mind. This drill is meant to simulate having to coordinate with various agencies across the states and regions that you may not normally work with. We'll introduce various injects that you'll have to respond to, and roll with the artificialities and don't fight the scenario. You are separated into regions, which we know may not be how you would normally be grouped, how you would normally coordinate in a response. So in order to make this as interactive as possible for everyone across the country, there may be some artificialities, so just roll with it. You all are on this call, so you know that each day there's a 1-hour session at 11 a.m. Eastern. This is where we're going to tell you what the objectives are for the day, give you some information, and provide the opportunity for you to have some conversation. So today is the first day, it is the kickoff, and we're focusing on building partnerships. If you did not receive the daily Teams invite for today, that means that you registered after March 10th, yesterday. You can always go to the resource library in the Nationwide Drill folder, which I have a link here, and you can access the week expectations, which is going to have the link and Teams meeting information for each day. So based on your state, you're going to be grouped with your corresponding RAP region. So there are 6 RAP regions, and depending on the state that you are located in, that is the region that you are going to be working with for this week. I'm going to hand it off to Bill if you'd like to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about how the ROS are going to be leading these groups.
Great, thanks, Christine. I'm Bill Irwin. I'm FEMA Type 1 ROS, and I am with the Department of Homeland Security, FEMA, and Department of Energy, a part of the steering committee for ROS. We, as Christine noted, been working for 10 years to build this program. I'll talk a little bit more about it in a moment. But as you can see here, we have identified 2 or 3 ROS to support each of the regions. There are actually more ROS in each of these regions. They'll likely work together as what we would call Ross Task Force. These leaders are going to reach out to you to try to not only introduce themselves, but also to help kind of keep the play going. And most of that play will be scenario based, and that scenario based play will take place tomorrow. Next slide, please. So the Ross was identified as a need to develop across the nation actually after 9/11 and our evaluation of vulnerabilities here in the United States. And over the decade after that, we developed a mission to develop this ROS. And in 2014, the states were brought in to work with those federal agencies to actually understand what a ROS could do, needs to do, and a training program was developed in 2016. We taught our first class of 16. After a couple of years of working with the training course independently, it was turned over to Counterterrorism Operations Support, who began teaching the initial training class in 2018. And in 2019, we, from FEMA, had the first position qualification and position task book issued. And in 2021, we began to pilot continuing education through what's called the virtual evaluation scenario tool. You can find all of this described in the link you see at the bottom of the page there. ROS are NIMS typed resources. They are trained to provide emergency staff with actionable recommendations for response to and recovery from incidents. And we ensure that they are able to handle a severe nuclear power plant and transportation accident through radiological dispersal device and a nuclear detonation. The exercise and experiences of the first ROS were used to develop the training program. We've now trained over 300 ROS across the country. Next slide, please. This is that position qualification that was developed by FEMA and is now incorporated into the resource typing library. You can use emergency mutual aid to actually request ROS for an incident that might occur. And this is how you would pick which type you want. Type 4 being the introductory initial level of a ROS, and a type 1 being someone who can do anything for any kind of radiological emergency and assist anyone from first responders up to the governor's office. They have gained competencies over years, either historically or after they took their initial training class, to become type 3, then 2, then 1. And we have ROS in nearly every state. Next slide. Again, that link that I shared with you is here again, and it has that graphic there to share the ROS capabilities and some other information. You can see the ROS position qualification in total, as I just described the first page, and you can see other things about the ROS capabilities. What we expect over the course of the next few days is that the ROS will help you by advising on the values of partnerships. Hopefully, in fact, they become partners with you in your jurisdiction where they reside, or as a part of the event in this drill and in future events. We also hope that Tuesday they'll help with field data verification, interpretation, supporting decision makers with science-based guidance. Following that, we'll look at safety and health protection among those conducting tactical operations, messages to first responders and to the public, and supporting planners as they, throughout the week, develop situational awareness. Now, these are going to be done notionally, so don't expect that you're going to see all of this work getting done. We're going to talk about how partnerships help get it done best. Next slide, please. All right, so your Ross Task Force leader will or may have already reached out to you to introduce themselves. And that's one of the things that we hope they do today. And then over the course of the rest of the week, they'll be working on helping you. And we're going to actually give time each of the days, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday during this 1100 to 1200 hour to have those kinds of discussions as regions in accomplishing some of those tasks. Thanks, Christine.
Thanks, Bill. So with that being said, your nation or your drill Ross task force leaders will be reaching out to you. Another way that we want you all to practice communicating, or something that may be new to you, is the RadResponder chat feature. So over the weekend, if you have been registered by Sunday, yesterday, you would have been added as a partner to your corresponding nationwide drill event, and you were also individually added to the chat. If you do not see a chat message, I just sent out a chat to all of the regions saying welcome to day one. If you do not see that, that means most likely your organization does not have the chat functionality enabled. So please email us at support@cburnresponder.net if you wish to leverage and utilize the chat functionality throughout the week. This will just be a good way, so you're not having hundreds of email threads going back and forth. You can keep everything separate in CBurnResponder if you'd like, and you can kind of have that ongoing thread and conversation. Do not take any actions within the event space today. It's simply, we just set it up today just so you can have that chat if you wish to do so. Every day before the 11 a.m. session, the drill participant guide for that day will be uploaded to the resource library. I did link the resource library URL in the chat. You do have to be logged in to access this on RadResponder, but from in that folder, there is a participant guide section, and you will see day one. This is the document that you'll download for today. And after each daily meeting, I will also attach the slides that we're using today, as well as the participant guide to the specific calendar invite, so you have multiple ways to access the materials that you need for that day. So without further ado, let's get into day one and what you all will be doing today. So today we'll be focusing on building out and editing your organization's partnerships. And we want to talk about why are partnerships so important. So by establishing default partnerships within your organization, no matter what type of organization you are, you have partnerships with your local fire department, for example, your county public health department, your DOE RAP team, EPA, the advisory team, the state police, your state department of emergency management, whichever organizations that you anticipate working with or maybe should be involved with for situational awareness. By partnering at the organization level, when events are created, you're able to share data with them in real time without worrying about forgetting an important or integral partner. You're then able to make decisions together with a complete set of information instead of working in various silos. So today's goal is you're going to be locating partners. It's all outlined in the drill participant guideline. However, you can use the network map to find CBurnResponder organizations in your region and area. You may not be aware that some organizations around you have CBurnResponder accounts. You may also notice that there may be some organizations that you work with regularly that are not in CBurnResponder. These are both things to take note of, and you'll see what exactly we're asking you to do, again, in that participant guide. So when you are thinking about creating your partnerships, I want you to keep these things in the back of your mind. If a multi-jurisdictional or state radiological incident were to occur, which organizations are going to be the ones collecting and entering data? Who's assessing and validating that data? Which organization is going to create the event in CBurnResponder? And which organizations are going to view data for situational awareness? These are decisions for your data and event access that need to be made outside of CBurnResponder, so that way you can set up those partnerships properly. Ideally, we want to do this before an incident occurs, so you're not scrambling when you're going out to respond to a real-world incident. And your ROS in your region can help you make these decisions. Back to you, Bill.
Yeah, thanks, Christine. So we expect in a major radiological or nuclear incident that we're going to have multiple jurisdictions, whether they're municipalities or counties or whole states. And whenever you have multiple jurisdictions, it's going to begin chaotically, but over the course of hopefully minutes or no more than hours, we're going to begin to organize some sort of area command. And we hope that Ross will help with the regional partnerships so that we have a coherent response in this complex multi-jurisdictional incident. Ross are trained to support the authorities having jurisdiction with science-based guidance and actionable recommendations. They are not, however, meant to replace any of those authorities having jurisdiction. They are there to advise them. In some cases, as is the case for me in Vermont, I am the authority having the jurisdiction for some of the radiological and nuclear emergency response and recovery decision making, but not all ROS are in that kind of position. Our ROS are trained in health physics. They're aware of tactics to meet the needs due to a catastrophic radiological and nuclear incident. We know states, municipalities, counties can handle the routine events. They're well versed in incident management practices, and they should keep and help keep their regional partners working together and accomplishing what's needed efficiently and effectively.
Okay, so the ROS are going to be great resources for you today throughout the week. And as you start working on your nationwide drill participant guide today, we do have some notes before you begin. So this is that second page of the participant guide. We have a link to the pre-drill webinar. So if you were unable to attend that webinar on Thursday, we have a link to the recording. So we highly recommend you check that out. And just a few reminders. Once we get to day one, which we're starting off right now, we have 7 different questions and tasks for you to think about. This is not going to be super difficult, but they are going to provoke some thinking, and we definitely want you to leverage your ROS task force leaders, at least to connect with them today. We're focusing on your own organization today, so you within your organization can chat amongst yourselves how you want your organization partnerships to look. Maybe you currently have partnerships that are outdated. Maybe you need to delete some or add some. That's what today is going to focus on. We do have resources at the bottom that are going to provide you with more information about specific capabilities that you're working on today. So we have a video on how to build a common operating picture in RadResponder and how some RadResponder prepared organizations have implemented RadResponder into their common operating procedures. Before tomorrow, you need to, 1, establish contact with your ROS task force leaders, which again, they should be sending you an email. Go through your organization's partnerships and answer the questions in that participant guide. And that's it. We don't want this to be overly complicated or overly involved. We are very respectful of your time and are very grateful that you are choosing to spend an hour a day with us to accomplish these drill goals. So today is going to be fairly straightforward, and we just want you to get your bearings. I now want to hand it off to the community. So we have 3 different organizations and groups that are going to speak briefly on their RadResponder partnerships, how being a RadResponder prepared organization has assisted them throughout their response and goals. With that, I'm going to pass it back to Bill for the New England Radiological Health Committee.
Thanks again, Christine. As you can see here, this is a 57-year partnership. I could actually ask nearly anyone in the New England Radiological Health Committee, or what we call NERC, to give this presentation. A number of them are playing here today, and it just made sense for me to give this. Next slide, please. The NERC was established because in the late 1960s, nuclear power plants were planned throughout New England. They were Yankee Row, Connecticut Yankee, Maine Yankee, Vermont Yankee, and Pilgrim. I can understand why they wouldn't want to put Yankee in their name. That's in Massachusetts, home of the Boston Red Sox. Regardless, a great and smart thing occurred, that was that each of the states, the six, actually had statutes of almost an identical nature. They were obviously a little bit different because they were in different formats for the statutes in those states, like the one on the left here from Vermont. These statutes codified that each of our states in New England would go to the aid of any of the others when needed for a radiological or nuclear emergency. The 57 years since this started, we have had our states work together annually in a conference. We call that the New England Radiological Health Conference, and we practice a lot of the skills needed for radiological and nuclear emergency response. Next slide, please. As RadResponder entered after Fukushima back in 2011, it was soon realized how effective RadResponder would be, not only in general, but in response to our compact. And for that reason, our what's called the New England Radiation Assistance Plan has incorporated into it the paragraphs that you see there on the right, whereby we adopt in each of our states RadResponder. We train each of our state collections of responders to use it, and we exercise regularly. We also include as partners various federal agencies and private entities. And in looking at that today, if you could go to the next slide, please. I was noticing that there are some additional partnerships I would like to build for the NERC, and I will be working with our committee to bring those partnerships together. I hope, in fact, that some of those will come out of this exercise that's taking place this week. Thank you. Back to you, Christine.
Thank you. I will now pass it off to Mike and/or Shannon to talk about their use of RadResponder in their organization.
Okay, thank you, Christine. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, great. Go ahead. Next slide, please. So my name's Mike Fursick. I'm with the Connecticut DEP Radiation Division along with Shannon Perry. Next slide, please. And I'm going to do a brief discussion on everything that we utilize RadResponder for. Obviously, we use it for enter data in our drills and exercises. But if you're not aware of it, RadResponder has a great capability to enter information for your calibration data for your instruments. We have devices called ecogammas that are Mirian ecogammas that are real-time radiation meters that we have throughout the state, and we have that information going through RadResponder. We use it as a library for our procedures, and we have used it for decommissioning activities, and I'll further explain all those in the presentation. Okay, next slide, please. So as you can see, here's an example of how we have utilized RadResponder for a Millstone emergency response exercise. Millstone Nuclear Power Station is currently a 2-unit. It's a 3-unit site. 2 units are operating in Waterford, Connecticut. As a matter of fact, tomorrow we have a training exercise tomorrow for Millstone, and we have a upcoming FEMA evaluated HAB exercise in June, which is stands for Hostile Action Base. But as you can see, we utilize it to enter our data for our field teams. We partner with the Electric Boat Corporation to act as our field team coordinators. They're RadResponder prepared as well. And we use it not only for Millstone exercises, but we use it for electric boat exercises as well. Okay, next slide, please. Instrument calibration. We have. I like to. I say we have enough instruments for a small nuclear reactor. Maybe not a small one, a medium-sized reactor site. We have over 300 meters, and Shannon uses this to help keep track of all our meters, when they're due, where they are. Shannon, do you want to add anything about that? About the inventory? Maybe not. Okay. Next slide, please.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah.
Hey, yeah. The only other thing I would add is that we also use the inventory to assign certain detectors to individuals in our organization. So you can see who owns what meter along with our field monitoring team kits.
Yeah, so that's that's a good point. We have meters throughout the state and what we call field monitoring teams, but we also have meters assigned to individuals that they keep in their vehicles with them. So we here in Connecticut, we're able to, if there's a radiological incident, and we can, dispatch somebody immediately to it. If it's an incident of greater significance, then we have what we call monitoring team kits. We have 2 at Millstone's Emergency Operation Facility in Norwich, Connecticut. We have 2 at what we call our old line Marine headquarters, and we're the Department of Environmental Protection. So we partner up with our environmental conservation police officers, and that way we can put assets out on the water. And I don't know, Millstone is on Long Island Sound, so we can actually take rad readings in a boat in Long Island Sound. We keep a kit at State Police Troop K, which is in Colchester, which is near where the Haddam Neck site was, Connecticut Yankee, which is now a fuel-only decommissioned reactor site. And we have a couple in the Hartford area as well. So we have instruments. Like I said, we have lots of instruments, and RadResponder helps us keep control of that and try to monitor or reduce the chaos. Next slide, please. So there's just more examples of the calibration slides, or the calibration information you can put into RadResponder. Next slide, please. Again, this is self-explanatory. You can see instead of getting rid of, you can get rid of a lot of paperwork. Next slide, please. So the EcoGamma, I mentioned that earlier. As you can see, there's an example of it. That's the Mirion EcoGamma. It's a pretty cool instrument. It's an energy compensated GM. Can you hear me now?
Yep, sorry.
Okay,
We had
yeah.
some people off mute.
Yeah, no problem. It's an energy compensated GM. It was designed to be outdoors, so it can handle extreme weather. It allows for real-time monitoring. It goes from micro R range to 10,000 R. It's sensitive enough where we were even able to verify sunspot activity. So they're pretty cool. Like I said, we have these in various locations around the state, and we can see them real time, and we have that going through RadResponder. Next, please. So this shows you where we have some of these instruments right now. We're actually planning before the end of the month, we're going to get 2 more deployed, one in Danbury, Connecticut, and one in Greenwich, Connecticut. We're going to partner with our air monitoring people. Like I mentioned, we are part of the DEP. We are actually in the Air Bureau, and we have some air pollution control monitors in Danbury and Greenwich. So we're going to put them at the same location. We used to have TLDs or LSLDs located in those 2 locations as sentinel, so to speak, for Indian Point. But we're going to keep those at those locations in case of an incident in New York City. But next slide, please. And that's an example of the information we get from the eco gammas, and you can see the readout right there is in micro per hour, but you can see how we get real-time data. Next, please. Procedures, we keep all our procedures, our emergency response procedures in RadResponder, and that's important so we can have our partners read them and get them available for our partners. Bill mentioned the NERC, so this is a way for somebody from another state or a partner, so to speak, can take a look at our procedures so they're ready to hit the ground running if they have to respond to an incident. Next, please. So here's an example. So we utilized RadResponder for I'll just say a real event. This was for decommissioning a confirmatory survey we did at a former nuclear fuel manufacturing facility. And we were able to utilize the indoor monitoring feature as well. As you can see, there's an individual taking scans. This would be something we would do, let's say, in a post-plume phase. But activities that we use in decommissioning would be similar, again, similar survey techniques. And like I said, sometimes you think outside the box, and using RadResponder for this was pretty good because we could put all our information into it and allow it to share it with our partners. And in this case, it was our partners were DOE and Schenectady, New York. Okay, next slide, please. And again, there's an example of our surveys. Go ahead, next slide, please. But you could see, like in that previous slide, we were taking soil samples, so we were able to put in data from soil samples and our scans and fixed readings. Next slide, please. Next. So there is an example of in RadResponder the sample ID and the type of samples we took and the readings. So again, even though the program wasn't designed for what we used it for, we were able to, like I said, think outside the box and use it for something else. And I will say this: it also gave us a reason to, or the ability to practice using RadResponder, and it worked out really well. Next slide, please. And again, survey sample locations. As you can see who took the sample and all that information. Next, please. And there is how you can access the data in RadResponder. Next slide, please. And the analytical results, so we could upload the analytical results in it and share it with our partners. Next slide, please. That's it. Like I said, we utilize RadResponder a lot, or CBRN responder. I keep going back to RadResponder, but we utilize it quite a bit. We use it for, like I said, the eco gamma to keep our procedures in, obviously for emergency response exercises and drills, and we do use it for real events. That helps keep us proficient in RadResponder, and it's something I can recommend. And if anybody has any questions, here's our contact information. And Christina, I will turn it back over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mike and Shannon. That was very insightful. All right, I'm now going to pass it off to Dustin from the Riley County Police Department.
All right, thank you, Christine. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Excellent. Hey, good morning, everyone. This is Dustin Weisbrod out in Manhattan, Kansas. And I was asked to speak briefly about our organization, our use of CBRN Responder, and our recent RadResponder and ChemResponder prepared certifications. So I'll give you an overview of our agency real quick. The Riley County Police Department, or RCPD, is a mid-size a consolidated law enforcement agency headquartered in Manhattan, Riley County, Kansas. RCPD was the first consolidated and nationally accredited law enforcement agency in Kansas. And we currently serve as the primary law enforcement agency with a jurisdiction of around 620 square miles, with a base population of just over 72,000 residents. Our area is home to a few notable places related to CBRN. First off, Fort Riley Military Installation, home of the U.S. Army's 1st Infantry Division, or the Big Red One. We're also home to Kansas State University, which is a comprehensive research land-grant institution. At KSU, we have the Biosecurity Research Institute, which is a BSL-3 laboratory used for research to address threats to plant, animal, and human health. And KSU is also home to a Mark II nuclear reactor facility. And Manhattan also recently became the home of USDA's brand new National Bio and Agro Defense Facility, or NBAF, which is our nation's only large animal BSL-4 laboratory to study high consequence zoonotic diseases. And this facility is the replacement for the Plum Island Animal Disease Center out in New York. Next slide, please. All right, our agency employs several specialized teams under the heading of an emergency response unit, including a bomb team and a hazardous evidence response team. These two teams combine personnel within CBRN Responder under the organization RCPD HERT. Our primary mission is in crime scene management, evidence collection, and criminal investigation. We do both reactive and proactive investigations, and these are at incidents involving hazardous materials or CBRN materials. Next slide, please. Our agency joined CBRN Responder in April 2021 under the organization RCPD HERT. Our early use was for equipment inventory. I've heard a few other agencies mention that. We saw it as a great resource to list out our equipment and also kind of keep track of our inspections and the maintenance feature, which has been excellent. We quickly expanded use for entry of new and historical response events dating back to 2015. And we currently use CBRN Responder for all of our equipment, training, real-world event entry, such as our investigations and our joint hazard assessment team activities during special events. We've incorporated CBRN Responder into our monthly training program for a team, which includes the use of the CBRN Responder app as well as the CBRN Responder website. And we also participate in webinars and national drills such as this week's. Some of our hazard-specific use cases include for RadResponder, we've had real-world investigations, including radiation sources located in abandoned residents. We've done numerous special event JHAP missions and preventative rad nuke detection operations, as well as use in training and exercises using our radiological sources. Within KIM Responder, we have some real-world investigations, including clandestine drug laboratories, clandestine homemade explosive laboratories, some scenes contaminated with fentanyl, use of improvised chemical incendiary devices, again, JHAP missions, as well as training and exercises. And then within BioResponder, the newest one, we have real-world investigations, including numerous illicit grow operations for marijuana and poppies or for opium, biological materials found in food supplies, biological items located at a regional airport, some suspicious materials sent through mailings, as well as our training and exercises. Next slide, please. You can read more about our organization and our use of CBRN Responder, which is in the December 2022 Community Initiatives article, which is available on the CBRN Responder Network. Next slide, please. So as we continue to build proficiency in leveraging the key features within CBRN Responder, one of our team objectives for last year in 2023 was to develop some CONOPS and SOPs for our organization toward becoming a KIM Responder and RadResponder prepared organization. So we received guidance from the CBRN Responder resources that are available on the network, such as some draft documents available, as well as direct support from the CBRN Responder support staff. In February of 23, we submitted our RadResponder and KIM Responder prepared applications for review. We found the applications very easy to complete with sections broken out with check boxes for meeting the different requirements for the certifications. And then in March of 2023, we received our official certificates, and our organization also received seals of distinction across the website, which you can see there on the slide. And our achievement was shared by CBURN Responder through social media. Next slide, please. And that's all I have. Thank you for the opportunity to speak about our organization. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to reach out to me. My phone and email are available under our organization and CBURN Responder. Back to you, Christine.
Thank you so much, Dustin. Okay, so just a few things to wrap up. I did see in the chat quite a few people were unable to see their group chat. Again, that just means that your organization does not have the chat function enabled. So send us an email if you want chat to be enabled. Day one is meant to sort of work out those kinks. So if you're unable to see it, we'll enable a chat for you and get you access. One other thing I was seeing in the chat is that you couldn't find your event. You do not need to be in your event space today. The only reason you were added to the event was that we could add you to a team, thus to have a group chat. So the chat is the only thing that you need for the event. We'll introduce the event and the scenario tomorrow. Okay, so the Nationwide Drill Resource Library folder is going to have everything that you need for this drill. There is a daily kickoff meeting folder and a participant guide folder. Slides from today are in the daily kickoff meeting section, and the day one participant guide is in the participant guide section. Like I mentioned, I'm also going to be attaching those two documents to today's meeting invite, and the recording will be available sometime in the future, and that will be made available to you as well. I hope to get that out in the next few hours. Okay, so your ROS team lead should reach out to you soon if they have not already. Make sure you have access to the group chat. Once we enable chat for you and you get that email back, you'll just need to refresh your page and the chat function should appear at the top. We typically will send you a video on how to utilize chat. So if you're brand new to the chat feature, take a look at that video. And we will give you all the next 15 minutes to kind of coordinate within your group and your region. But before we let you loose, we do want to see if there are any questions. So if there are any specific questions, let us know. For ROS and more procedural questions, I would reach out to your ROS team lead. If you have CBURN Responder specific questions, go ahead and email us at support@cburnresponder.net and we will help you out. So I'm going to stop the recording